This is a video demonstration of the TestEX test case search engine. Before we begin the demonstration, we will briefly describe what TestEX is. Developers often search for code written by others to adapt or for inspiration. TestEX is a search engine developed to facilitate a need in the software development community for an easy way to search for unit test cases. Current source code search engines have trouble identifying test files from source files, which can lead to less efficient searching. TestEX uses a collection of over 3 million test files to return results based on language, test framework, and optional semantic keywords. Currently, TestEX can search test cases across 21 languages and 154 unit testing frameworks. In this video, we will demonstrate 3 use cases for TestEX. Our first use case is a developer who's new to unit testing. Let's say that I'm a Python developer, but I've never written a unit test before. I can navigate to TestEX using this address, and I'm presented with the following homepage. I have a search bar for any keywords, I have a drop-down for languages and for testing technologies, that is the unit testing frameworks. So for Python, I can select it from this language list, and then I see that a list has been populated of Python unit testing frameworks. For now, I'll just keep the default unit test. Now to see sample tests written in Python, I can just hit Find Code, and TestEX will return all of the unit tests written in this framework that it has in its database. We're now presented with a list of unit testing files which contain this framework and are written in Python. Now this is a long list because TestEX returns all possible results if you don't add any search criteria. So these are 1,000 pages of Python unit tests written with this framework. For each result, you get a snippet of the code, the lines of code in the file name, and the project that it derived from, which was pulled from an open source repository. Now we can look at the full code for any of these snippets and see if it's really what we're looking for. While this does seem relevant, if it's not exactly what I want, I can close out and continue to search other pieces of code until I find something a little less complicated, since I'm a new tester after all. Our next use case is finding examples of using a specific test framework component. So let's say that I'm a JavaScript developer who likes to use the Jasmine testing framework. While I'm familiar with the framework, there are certain components that I've never used before. For example, Jasmine has a component called spies. So I'd like to see some examples of how these spies are used in tests. So I can navigate back to TestEX. I'll select JavaScript from the language. I'll select Jasmine under testing technologies. And because I'm not entirely sure what the methods are called for this component, I'll just put in the word spy. And now we'll see what TestEX finds for us. So it looks like we've found about 178 pages of results. So looking at some of these, we can see that there's lots of references to spy. So we'll look at the first result because these are ranked results. So the first one is supposed to be the most relevant. Looking at the full code, we can see lots of use of spies, and there are a couple different ways in which these spies are used. We can see initialization, creation, and we can even see some tests that are being executed with these spies. So this is great, and if we don't see what we want, we could again go back. So now that we've found some examples, we have a general idea of how spy is used. And maybe we started to write some tests and we realized that we needed a specific spy method, but we're again not sure how to use it. We can return back to TestEX, re-input our language and technology parameters, but this time we'll look for what's called spy on, which is a specific method that spies can use. So now once again we'll search. And look at that, we now have 391 examples of using the method spy on. So this is an example of how TestEX can be used to find implementations of certain functions within something that you're already familiar with. Our final use case is finding implementations of tests which test certain software requirements. So now let's say that I'm a Java developer who wants to find examples of tests written in the JUnit framework that test or implement the heartbeat tactic. So, since Java and JUnit are already our default parameters here at the TestEX homepage, we can just add heartbeat to our search terms, and then we can perform the search. So it looks like we got back about 51 pages of results, and we'll just take a look at the first one here, MapReduce heartbeat, and we can see that it is testing heartbeat intervals. So this is great. This is an example, a couple different examples of tests which are testing the heartbeat tactic. But now, what if I want to see not testing the heartbeat tactic, but I want to see more just using heartbeat to test a different feature? Well, if we remember that the results are ranked, we can go back and we can look at one of the lower results. Maybe one of these just uses heartbeat because it is appearing less in the file. So let's look at number 8 here. Open that up to full view. And we can see that it is using heartbeat, but it doesn't look like it's testing heartbeat. If we move further down, we can see that the heartbeat tactic is being used to test volume failures. So this is an example of how TestEX can both show you how to use a technology or test for one.